Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I am Cherono. I want to take this opportunity to thank the subscribers who have subscribed to my channel. The last time I checked, we were at 200. 200! Can you believe it? Stop! No, don't stop. Keep on subscribing. Yeah, keep on subscribing. And like and share. Leave down your questions and I will be sure to answer to them to the best of my ability. Hello, so in this video, I will tackle the NVC stage of the K1 visa process. So if you're feeling lost and you're wondering how we got here, it's because you didn't board the train when we started, but don't you worry, I got you. I will leave in the description box below the link to the previous video that will guide you up to this point. Observations from this stage is that it gets to a point where things move real quickly. So compared to the previous stage where we were waiting for a long time to hear something or anything from the USCIS, or the NVC, in this stage, yeah, things will just start flowing and wait, you'll see, you will come back and tell me. And then another thing that I would say from this stage is that there's going to be a lot more heavy lifting from the beneficiary who is the non-US citizen. So this is a time to quickly get up and have all the documentations ready. These documentations are the ones that will be presented either during the medicals or the medical checkup or the interview. And some of them require a bit more time for them to be ready. Like one, you need to have your police certificate or police clearance, depending on which country you're from. Those small paper needs to be ready, and the process might vary from country to country. But from Kenya, it does take a while. Especially during my time, it took a long time, and I had applied for mine very quickly, like as soon as I got my second NOA. But then it took a long time to respond to me. Like I think it was a month or 2 months later. I had not gotten any feedback from them, and I was beginning to get very anxious or very worried. So this is a tip for Kenyans. If you find yourself in such a position, what I did, I went back to the DCI headquarters. That's where we get our police clearance. I asked them if I could speak to someone who helps to expedite this process of getting the police clearance. And there is, and they directed me to home office. I went there and I explained my case, and I was telling him, hey, I am applying for a visa, or I'm in the middle of going or preparing for my visa interview. I printed like some documentations, like if you have a DS-160, print that. If you have any letter from the embassy, print that. Anything from the NVC, print that. Anything that is showing that your process is moving forward, just print all that and present it to the DCI headquarters. And a week later, I was able to hear my case, and I didn't have to give them some tea, if you know what I mean. Like they're very helpful. And I understand it's something they do get a lot of requests from, because there are other applications that do require quick police clearance. So depending on your country, you might also need to find a way in which you can have your police clearance or certificate ready before things get more serious. You also need to have your vaccination certificates. I had already been vaccinated for COVID, the first dose, the second dose, and the booster. And what happens is that I didn't have my certificate ready, but then there's an online site where you go and you contact them, just asking them to give you your certificate. And I did that, and I was able to liaise with somebody from the health department, and they were able to send my vaccination certificate within 2 days. And one thing I'll also emphasize over here, once you have your vaccination certificate printed out or shared with you, mine was sent to me by someone on WhatsApp, and I tried to verify or double check my information, and I noticed that he had misspelled one of my names. And because this is a visa process where they check your names and they look for anything that might not add up, so you just double check your name. And since mine had a typo, I was able to get back to him. I asked him to use my correct spellings, and he was able to give me back my vaccination certificate with the correct spellings. And you see, that's why you need enough time to be able to change or have an adequate time to follow up on your documents. It's also a time for you to set up an appointment for your passport photos to be taken using the required specifications. And yeah, so have all those appointments set up. And do you have your original birth certificate? Some people, maybe they might need enough time to have theirs ready. So just take this time to have all the documentations ready. Don't worry, later on I will share with you all the list of requirements that I was asked by the embassy to prepare before the interview. So use this time to make sure you have everything you need. Back to our NVC process. As you have watched in the previous video, on 30th May 2023, we got our NOA to notifying us that our application was being forwarded to the National Visa Center, the NVC, for processing. That is such a big win. It's good news. After that, we were now in waiting for my welcome letter or my case number. Going back to the waiting game, we waited for quite a bit and we were not getting my case number or any form of notification from NVC or even a welcome letter. Nothing was coming from the NVC, and we got really anxious. And so 60 days after getting our NOA to my then fiance, who was the petitioner, he decided to send an inquiry to the NVC, just seeking some form of confirmation that they had actually received our petition or they were working on our petition, because we were just completely in the dark. And in that inquiry form, which I will link also down below, he highlighted in our details as per the format that has been shared on that form, which includes his date of birth, my date of birth, and he sent that inquiry form to the NVC. And guess what? On the 10th of August 2023, we were able to get a response from them, and they had indicated all my details, including my case number. So for us, that was such a big sign or a big win that our application had been received at NVC, and they were working on it, which is what we wanted to find out in the first place. So that was on the 10th of August. And so having a case number allowed us to follow the progress of our application. And the first status based on this site, which I will also share in the description below, indicated that it was NVC, later on switched to in transit, meaning that it was now being transported from the National Visa Center to my US embassy in my home country, Kenya, or they call it the US consulate. So it did indicate that it was in transit. It was now being, taken there, and eventually or finally it read as ready. On 29th of August 2023, we got, or rather my petitioner or my then fiance, got a letter from the NVC notifying us that our application was being forwarded to the US Embassy in Nairobi, Kenya. On 30th of August, that's the day after, we decided to do our DS 160. Also, a point to note that during this NVC stage, my fiance and I had started doing a premarital counseling. So this is a very good tip for someone who is going through the process, because when you go for the interview, you will also be justifying the validity of your case on a one-on-one basis. And for us, we had already decided on the church we were going to get married in or at. And one of the requirements from the church was that we needed to do a premarital counseling. They assigned us a marital counselor, and so we had different sessions, and we had also paid a deposit for the wedding chapel. Like we were like full on into the wedding prep and just following in the steps that were required by the church for us to get married on that day. And all these things were things that we were doing now during this NVC stage, which are helpful documentation that you can use when it comes to justifying that you are actually planning on getting married. And these are the evidence to prove that, or the plans that you already have made towards your wedding. And also, like I had shared earlier, I was also working on my vaccine certifications and my police clearance. And one thing that I didn't have that maybe, didn't work against me was I didn't have my childhood vaccinations, because these are documentations that were being kept safely by my mom. But it so happened that at some point when we were moving homes or moving houses, they were misplaced, and so I didn't have those. The main vaccine evidence that I had for myself were the ones that I'd taken as an adult, which were the COVID-19. So yeah, it maybe just something to mention. If you don't have that, just go with what you have. On September 8th, 2023, my fiance got an email from the US consulate in Nairobi, that's the US embassy in Nairobi, Kenya, notifying us that they had received my petition or my application from the NVC, and that was again another big win. And I'm sharing the dates so that you can also benchmark with your own timelines. I have received lots of questions from people asking me, after how long did you receive this? After how long did you receive that? So from the specific dates, you can be able to tell how long each step took. And in that email from the US Embassy, it had a list of next steps, or rather the list of instructions, which are also seen here. At this stage, we decided to schedule for my medical exam with the IOM in Nairobi. And from there, at the IOM, we worked with the earliest date. I can't remember exactly when it was, but we just wanted the most earliest date that was available. And we booked that, and working with them, they will give you instructions that you have to provide your DS-160, your passport if I'm not wrong, but they will guide you. So I scheduled my appointment for the medicals, and then the next step was now for me to schedule the next available date for my interview with the embassy. And as for Kenyans, I don't know if this is applicable in other countries, or I don't know if this is what is happening right now. We are scheduling, or I rather scheduled my own interview, as opposed to what I was seeing or watching online where people were saying you have to wait for the embassy to invite you for an interview with specific dates. That wasn't the case in Kenya. There's an online portal or an online account, which I will also send or put the link in the description, where you create your own accounts. You have your own profile, and you log in and you log out, and from that online account is where there's a section for scheduling an interview. And so in my experience, there was no available interview date. That was around September, like following what I'm just sharing, August, September. There was no interview for November. For December, I think the most available interview date was sometime in February this year. And we were like, oh, okay, let's, then I think we just have to wait. Like, everything was just moving so fast. Now we have to be stalled at the embassy stage. But I kept on checking. So that's one thing. Another thing I learned from the Kenyan team was that there was a WhatsApp group. Apparently, this is something I learned later on during my interview when I was interacting with the other K1 visa applicants who are there also waiting to be interviewed. Is that I learned that there is a Kenyan WhatsApp group where they update each other when the dates are available. That's something that I wasn't aware of. I was just working by myself in the dark. But if you're doing that, you don't sweat it. You really, no, it's not. You don't need to be there. Like, I wasn't there and I was able to get at it. So I kept on checking. Remember, the next available date was sometime the following year in around Feb or March. And it can be very discouraging. So I was like, let me just keep on checking. I kept on checking. And on the 21st of September, see, it's not even quite too far. On the 21st of September, in the afternoon, something told me just go online and check if there's an available interview date. I went online, I checked for the interview date, and it had opened up for the 29th. So this is the 21st. And there was a date available, like that was like almost a week and a day after for an interview. I got so excited and I panicked. And I immediately texted my fiance. I was like, hey, we have a date available. I'm gonna book it. He was like, yes, go ahead and book it, slot that in. And I went online, I booked on that date. And once you book, you have to pay. I paid about 265 USD. That's like, yeah, you have to pay for it to be fully booked. So I booked the date, I paid for the amount, the 265 USD, and then I got a confirmation email, a receipt, like an electronic receipt online on my email, which was a good indication. And it stated that, hey, you have been slotted in for an interview on this day. And the available time for the interview for me was around 7:15 in the morning, 7:15 a.m. And once that was done, we were like, oh, we have a date. We were so excited. But then we remembered, oops, the medical examination was going to be after the interview date. And so I had to quickly fix that. And so I wrote an email to the IOM, the medical center, and I I told them, hey, an interview date has just opened up and I had been scheduled to be present for my medicals on this date, but it's going to be way after my interview date. Is there a way in which we can move it forward and give it enough time, because they need 3 to 5 days for the results to be ready? Is there a way we can move it forward and give them enough time and give the results enough time for them to be ready for my interview? And in that email, it was like urgent, like in the subject of my email was all caps urgent, like I needed urgent assistance. And they were able to respond immediately and they gave me an earlier date. And so my interview was going to be on a Friday, on the 29th, and they did my medicals, was it on a Monday or a Tuesday or on Wednesday? Like I remember I had like about 3 days for the results to be ready. And I did that. So I had just to prepare for my medicals. I went with my vaccination certificate and I was able to be attended, and I had enough time for the results to be ready just in time for my interview appointment. But usually don't do that, don't play with time, because I remember during our interview, which I will share later on, because after our interview, the interviewer told me, hey, like, yeah, you have passed your interview, but we are yet to receive your medicals. And I was just about to like sulk or be discouraged, but even before I walked out the counter, which is an update for later on, he told me, hey, wait just a second, this is your name, we have just received your application. And before I had even gone in for my interview, the ladies that I was with, they were just also had gone for the interview, waiting to be interviewed. Some of them had been cleared, like they had passed the interview, but they were told that they needed to wait a bit longer for the final verdict, because the embassy was waiting for their results to come in. So I think for me, when I was being interviewed is when everyone's results maybe was coming in, and I was able to get my FET there and then. So also maybe be able to communicate that with IOM and make sure they give you enough time for your results to come in. And I think in the next video I will tackle the interview, which is another ball game. So thank you for watching. Until next time.